Dick Dowdswell spent thousands of hours at the wheel of the TE20 without cultivating anything at all.
On the TE20 I was a field tester. I tested about 30 or 40 different implements, but then there was always modifications being made. So all the time you were testing modifications as well as new implements. The job of testing was to drive the tractor as hard as possible over as rougher conditions within practical farming use.
Dick was testing to destruction rather than testing for quality, if you like.
Nobody was quite as hard as I was on the machinery. I think that if anything was going to break, I managed to make it break, you know. I had ways of thinking up hard jobs for them.
He was destructive, but exactly what we wanted. He was serving a purpose. He would just laugh at you and say, well, I broke it.
I don't think Mr. Patterson worried too much, but he used to sort of call me the wrecker. But I think he was joking more than serious, you know.
If you wanted something to be tested for 1,000 hours, put Dick on it. And if it lasted 1,000 hours, you go to bed and sleep. He hadn't been able to break that one.
The uses of the TE20 went beyond farming. A range of 60 different implements took the tractor to places it had never been before. Playing fields, building sites, road construction.
The roller is chain-driven from the power unit's rear wheels and steered through an independent system. When the power unit is required elsewhere, it is a matter of minutes to disconnect.
In 1953, Harry Ferguson, by now nearly 70, sold out to the Canadian firm Massey Harris. Just 2 years later, production of the TE20 came to an end. In 10 years, over 500,000 tractors had been made, more than any other single British model before or since.
Well, it was not Mr. Ferguson's intention to go to production. He didn't want it to go to production. He'd be making it today if he was still around. He never wanted it to go to production. But fashions change.
The 1960s saw the end of the TE20 era. Farms were getting larger, so tractors did too. All over the country, farmers replaced their 26 horsepower Fergies with new tractors of up to 100 horsepower. The company is still at Banner Lane and has never ceased tractor production in nearly 50 years. The cheapest of the modern Massey Fergusons is now around £11,000. A single rear wheel costs more than the original TE20.
If you look closely at the TE20 and look at any other make of tractor, you'll find all the TE20 features are included there. You've still got the Ferguson 3-point linkage, the same system. No matter how much they've developed in 50 years, big brother, little brother, whatever, TE20 is daddy.
This legacy is acknowledged at the plant. The first TE20 ever made dominates the entrance of the building as its inventor looks on. A plaque commemorates its achievement.
I think the major contribution that the TE20 has made to farming has been that it has set the pattern for all tractors through its hydraulic system, that virtually all implements are nowadays controlled from the tractor seat. The interesting thing is that the Ferguson system, in some form or other, is employed by every tractor maker in the world today.
On John Laughlin's farm, new and old coexist. Modern tractors do most of the work, but he still keeps a TE20 for smaller jobs. The little Fergie hasn't completely disappeared. Most of the original 500,000 may have been scrapped, but thousands are hard at work all over the country. It still comes into its own on jobs where lightness and manoeuvrability matter.
We still use the TE20 tractor because it does a lot of jobs that the heavy one wouldn't do so well.
Well, the job we were doing this morning was hoeing sugar beet. It takes 5 rows at a time. Once upon a time, obviously many moons ago, that was done with one man and one hoe. The tractor driver keeps it as accurate as possible, and the person on the back makes fine adjustments to the hoe with its own steering mechanism.
And being you've got a man on the back that's steering it, you can go much closer to the sugar beet. And the closer you go to the sugar beet, the more weeds you get up. The more weeds you get up, the less you got to hoe up by hand.
Basically, we can still use the TE20 for any lightweight jobs on the farm, and it's used for that. We find it much better in the potato fields, particularly with a ridger, because the ridger was designed to withstand the pulling power of the 20. But it's not strong enough to withstand the pulling power of any of the bigger tractors, and in our stony land, if you put that ridger in a bigger tractor, you finish up with half a ridger just before you know. You pull it apart. The TE20 has had a long life because it was a well-built, slow-revving engine of relatively low horsepower, so it was never under strain. And this one here is actually still original. The engine has never been overhauled. And after 40 years, that's not bad.
The Charity family grow barley and potatoes, just the kind of work which suits the TE20. For them, it's a much cheaper option than buying new tractors.
Well, we're quite unusual for having old tractors. Most folk are geared up with all modern tackle these days. But we prefer to hang on to our money, use it in other ways.
At the end of the day, they're very cheap to run. They're very miserly on diesel. Extremely miserly, yeah. 2 days on a tank full of fuel. 5 gallons, 2.5 gallons a day. Can you beat that? Almost take you to Scotland and that.
Theo Roberts does all the work on his 25-acre smallholding with his original TE20.
Since we bought it, I've thought the world of the TE20, and I wouldn't be without one. And of course, it served me for 40 years, and they were so well made, very little maintenance, and I hope it'll serve me again for the next 10 or 15 years while I'm still alive and kicking.
We shan't be like I was with the horses. We should never part with it. We shall keep it till it falls to pieces, that or me. I don't know which will go first. I think I shall, most likely.
Carol did is the most glamorous, successful and popular plane in airline history. The DC-3 Dakota is featured next Friday on BBC Two. That's except in Scotland.